welcome to the Biff and Buff program. We bring you the news from throughout the universe and every place else. Okay, Buff, well now how about telling us a little bit about the golden age of radio? Yes, Biff. During the 1920s and especially during the 30s, the years of the Great Depression, those were truly the golden days, called often the golden age of radio. It was a time when movies and radio were the principal source of entertainment, and radio this principal source of entertainment in the home. Some of the greatest programs originated in the 20s and the 30s. One I remember, the first one I remember more than any others, was the Amos and Andy show. Amos and Andy were the most popular people on radio in the 1930s during the Great Depression. There were two white men who played the part of colored people. I understand that the script was written every day by Corell and Gosden. Yes, they did write the programs and themselves. As a matter of fact, sometimes they just finished the script when it was time to go on the air. I heard that they had a tremendous amount of listeners. They had 40 million listeners in a time when the population of the entire United States was just a little over 100 million. 40% of the population. They were so popular that oftentimes people would go to the theater to see a movie, and if Amos and Andy came on at that time, the theater would stop the projector, stop the movie, and they'd play the program. I remember during the Chicago World's Fair, one of the attractions was called the Sky Ride. Two gigantic towers that stretched a cable across the entire fairgrounds. And there were gondolas that traveled back and forth calling people across the Sky Ride. And the names of the gondolas were made from, one was called Andy, one Amos, Kingfish, Madam Queen, and so forth.
The Amos and Andy Show.
I tell you, Kingfish, I is in a mess here.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, I ain't got no sympathy for a man that expects to take out a gal on a date with only 12 cents in his pocket.
Well, listen, I suppose when you was courting your wife, you never took her out with only that much money, huh?
Never, Andy, never. If she didn't have at least $1, the date was off.
Well, the only thing I can figure out is to take this gal of mine someplace tonight where there ain't no charge for admission. I know, maybe the museum. That's free.
Yeah, there's only one trouble over taking her to a museum.
What's that?
If she's anything like that last gal you had, they're going to keep her there.
Wasn't there another program that was just about as popular in those days? Yes. Another program that was extremely popular was called Fibber McGee and Molly. Fibber McGee and Molly originated on the WLS Barn Dance program. They were called the Smith family. They later went onto the radio themselves and got sponsors as Fibber McGee and Molly. And here's an excerpt from one of their early shows.
The Johnson Wax Program. Presenting Marion and Jim Jordan as Fibber McGee and Molly.
Heavenly days, McGee, don't look so worried.
I ain't worried. I'm just running over a few things in my mind, that's all.
Go on, your mind doesn't move fast enough to run over anything.
Oh, yeah?
Are you nervous about your cannon act?
Who, me? Yes.
It was summertime and everyone was sitting out on the porch, it seemed like, listening to the radio, and they were listening to Fibber McGee and Molly. I heard the whole program as I walked down the block, more than a block. I heard most of the program from the radio on one porch, and I'd pick it up on another porch as I went down. One thing at radio during the Depression was a great variety of programs. Well, many of the programs we watched as kids were kids' programs. Our most popular one in our family was Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy. It was a program that featured Jack Armstrong and his friends doing different things that we as youngsters would never be able to do, traveling to far places in the world and doing all kinds of exciting things. And it was a very popular program sponsored by Wheaties.
Jack Armstrong! Jack Armstrong! Jack Armstrong! Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy.
Wave the flag for Hudson High, boys. Show them how we stand. Ever shall our team be champions, known throughout the land.
Wheaties, breakfast of champions, bring you the thrilling adventures of Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy.
Our dad didn't like Jack Armstrong for some reason, but he never stopped us from listening. Another program that originated in Chicago, WTN, came from the Chicago Tribune newspaper, Little Orphan Annie. Through the entire series, Annie was played by Shirley Cole, who was a Chicago actress, played the entire series. She was famous for her voice, and I remember the song, Little Orphan Annie, Who's That Little Chatterbox? The one with pretty auburn locks, who do you see? It's Little Orphan Annie. Ended up with the dog, Sandy, quoting from Sandy, I guess, "Arf," says Sandy. Among the adult programs that my folks listened to, of course, were the Bob Hope program, and we used their products. We used Pepsodent toothpaste, and we used the product Chase and Sanborn coffee that was sponsored Eddie Cantor, and so forth. But my favorite program of all of that type was Fred Allen.
The Ford Dealers of America present the Fred Allen Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry that I haven't been here the last few weeks to introduce our star, but tonight I'm back. And here I am again, Portland Hopper.
Thank you, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Portland, where have you been the last 6 weeks?
Well, I had to stay home with Mama.
Oh, really? Why?
Mama lost a fortune.
How?
Every Sunday, Mama sat home and they didn't call her.
Who didn't call her?
Stop the music.
Oh, radio is the Marshall Plan with music.
Fred Allen was a caustic sort of person in a way, but he was very, very funny. And I didn't know it at the time, but I did know because they said a lot about it on the Jack Benny show. The fact that they had on that show a bevy of writers who came up with the jokes and situations that Jack Benny would portray. Fred Allen, on the other hand, wrote the entire show himself, working 6 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day. He did the whole show, wrote the whole thing himself, and of course was the star on the show. Also appearing on the show as a 13-year-old girl voice was his wife, Portland Hoffa. One of the most popular features of the Fred Allen Show was a segment called Allen's Alley, in which Fred Allen would go down an imaginary street knocking on doors and meet the various characters that lived in Allen's Alley. Parker Findlay was one of the more popular ones. He played the part of Titus Moody. When Fred would knock on the door, Titus would come to the door, and his opening statement was, "Howdy, bub."
Let's wake up Mr. Moody.
Howdy, bub.
Well, Mr. Moody, are you going away for a vacation?
Oh, I can't. I'm renting my barn for summer theater.
Oh.
Last summer I cleaned up. Made $180.
$180. What happened?
Well, sir, one day I was out in the yard.
Yeah?
I was buttering the trees so those caterpillars couldn't crawl up them.
Yeah?
And a fella comes up.
Yeah?
He's carrying a bamboo cane, and in his tie, he's got a diamond.
A diamond, eh?
Yeah, it's as big as a Luton cough drop, and it's about the same yellow color.
Yeah?
I smelt donuts on this fella's breath, so I knowed he was an actor.
Yeah?
He says, Rube, I'm here to rent your barn for Orson Buskin and his touring Shakespearean players.
Uh-huh.
It's a deal, I says.
Oh, he was the advance man.
He didn't say.
Oh, he didn't say that.
The next day, Orson Buskin, his leading lady, Anna Cesario,
Yeah.
and the Shakespearean players arrived in town. They swung off a freight train.
The actors, eh?
Yeah, they looked like a mob that had just broke a hunger strike.
I
Well, sir, that night the show opened. It's Hamlet.
see. Hamlet.
All the Shakespearean actors is wearing long black underwear.
Tights?
Loose on most of them.
Oh.
The leading ladies was baggy.
Oh.
In the back.
Oh.
Orson Buskin is strutting around the stage, holding a skull and saying, "Alas, poor Boric, I knew him well."
Well, how was the show?
Rotten. The audience threw 200 eggs at the actors.
Well, if the show was so bad the audience threw eggs, how did you make $180?
I was in the lobby selling the eggs at 90 cents a dozen. So long.
The most popular programs, and for which the Great Depression days of the 30s were noted for, later became known as soap operas. They were usually little 15-minute programs featuring people such as Ma Perkins, who ran a lumber yard, and her right-hand man, Shuffle. One of the most popular programs of all was Vic and Sade. It was the story of a man and his wife, Victor Gook, and his wife Sade, and their teenage boy named Rush. He was an adopted boy. And it was their stories and things that happened to them in the little, it was described as, their home was described as a little house halfway up in the next block.
He gets married, won't his wife feel flattered? Have a husband with single tattooed on his back.
In case of an accident, notify Joe Fleet, 1765 South Maple Avenue, Fort Worth, Texas.
Joe might move.
Some folks are capable of extracting huge amounts of innocent funds from very flimsy material.
No, sir.
Like catalogs, please.
Oh, them lad fellas up there in Chicago are just plain loony.
Here we have small statues of R.J. Cox, suitable for bookends, paperweights, door holders, or radiator ornaments.
Well, now, a statue of R.G. Gunk stuck on the front of your automobile as a radiator ornament that sure looks funny.
Why?
Bald head and whiskers? Those radiator ornaments are pretty girls or animals or birds.
Kiddo.
But an old jink with whiskers and bald head and
Kiddo.
stuck up.
R.J. Cox founded the sacred stars of the Milky Way.
But the people who I remember more than anything else as being behind all of this was a lady by the name of Ann Hummert. She was the wife of Frank Hummert, a principal in one of the big Chicago ad agencies. It was her idea that she came up with the first soap opera. It was a program called Just Plain Bill. It was a sort of a philosopher barber and the people that came into his barber shop. That grew into a whole series of programs. This went on. It was a continuing story that went on for a long time. These programs were produced right in Chicago, and understand that you had a man working for you once who was an actor on those programs. Matt Measham worked for me in my ad agency. He was a copywriter. He told me one time that he worked on several of the soap operas in the Merchandise Mart in Chicago. And he was so many different characters on each program that he would do the script, they would read the program, and then he would throw down the script, run down the hall to another studio where he was another character on another soap opera. It was pretty busy in those days because there were an awful lot of them on the air. This is Buff Baggett. And with my brother Biff, we thank you for watching the Biff and Buff program. See you next time. Meantime, check us out on newedmedia.com. You'll see more of what we do, and you'll see more of a couple of our shows. Thanks again for watching.